All right. Welcome to Generational Talent. We're talking about week 13 in the NFL and week 14 and the playoffs and so much more. My name is Chris. Thank you for joining us.
My name is Matthew. I'm excited to talk about last week.
So, Matthew, how was your week? I know you were in my house and got to spend Thanksgiving together. So, how was your week?
I was good. Went to my fiance's house as well. So we got I got two Thanksgivings. It was good. Lots of football. Lots of fun to talk about. And but yeah, I always enjoy spending time with family. So it's a good break.
I do too. It was nice. Family, food, and football. That's why Thanksgiving is my favorite holiday.
Yeah.
So, speaking of Thanksgiving, we had three games on Thanksgiving Day. Dallas, or New York and Dallas, kind of a dud. It doesn't really matter in the big scheme of things. Miami at Green Bay. I think we figured out that Miami cannot play in cold weather. Period. And but the big game of Thursday of Thanksgiving was Chicago at Detroit. And, in that first half, I think I texted you and said that Detroit has the best offense I've seen since the 2007 Patriots. The second half, they just went completely flat, and Chicago's defense stepped up. To
Yeah.
me, I mean, it was obviously a tale of two halves, and we're going to talk about the end of the game here in a second. But do you think Detroit is still the team to beat in the NFC?
No, I don't. I think I think with those defensive injuries, I mean, yes, they have the best record, um, but with those defensive injuries, they have something like 17 players on IR, or 17 players that are injured, and 13 of them I think are on defense.
Yeah,
Um,
17 players on IR. Not just that's not even counting the injured. Just
yeah,
the
that's
questionable and
just
the doubtful. 17 players on IR. 13 of them are defensive. Yes.
yeah. So I think that's tough to overcome. Uh, you
Yeah. Is
know,
that going to catch up with them? That's the question.
I think it will. Excuse me. I think it will. I really do. I think that the their defense, the last couple of games, their defense has not looked the best. Yes, their defense looked good in the first half against Chicago, but Chicago got right back into that. And then the same, I think it was the Colts. Uh, the Colts didn't look terrible against that defense. So yeah, I don't think Chicago or I don't think Detroit's the team to beat anymore. I definitely think it is Philly. And you got to think Detroit is unbeaten since they were 1-1. Philly's unbeaten since they were 2-2. So it's not that much of a difference. One team has
Yeah.
one more loss. I mean, and I think Saquon Barkley is putting on a mammoth of a season.
Yeah. We'll talk about him in a minute too. But yes, I think that the Lions. I'm not saying they're winning with smoke and mirrors, sort of like the Chiefs are, but I'm saying the Lions are. I mean, their offense when it's on, it's on. Their
Yeah.
defense is so banged up, and at the end of the day, is that going to catch up to them in the play? I mean, this is the thing. They have a tough schedule down the stretch too.
Yeah.
With a big matchup against Green Bay on Thursday night. You know, now it's in
And they still have
Detroit,
to play the Vikings once.
but Green Bay is, I mean, super hot. They're coming in, I think, winning the last three and like seven of the last eight or something.
Yeah, something like
So,
that.
you know, Jordan Love starting to look healthy, starting to calm down on the turnovers.
Yeah, it hasn't thrown a turnover in 2 games.
Yeah, Detroit is. I mean, that's a big game, and I think they still have another matchup against the Vikings. So, I know Detroit's only they're 11-1, but there's only a couple of games separating first place and third place in that division.
Yeah, I mean, and in my opinion, um, you know, the Philly is locked in at second place. Worst case scenario, they're second place in my opinion. I don't think I think the Commanders are very good, but I don't think they're going to catch them. They've lost too
You're
many
talking
games.
about in the division.
Yeah, I'm talking about in the conference. They're at worst place, second place in the conference. Detroit, on the other hand, if they lose 2 games and the Vikings get into first place, Vikings beat them in the division, you could be looking at Detroit in the wild card round. You know,
Well, yeah,
um,
that's what I'm saying. There's only a couple of games that are separating first and third. I
yeah,
mean, you look here with Detroit's number 1 seed, Philly 2 seed. If the playoffs started today, Atlanta is a team that I don't think is going to stay there.
I
I
don't think so
definitely have
either.
worries about them. The third seed, Seattle, that division's so wide open. So yeah, I think it's a fight between Detroit, Philly, Green Bay, and Minnesota for the top 2 seeds right now.
Yeah, I agree. I agree wholeheartedly.
So
I think Philly is. I think in a couple weeks we'll see that Philly is where the NFC is going to have to run through in this year's playoffs.
potentially, I mean, it's definitely potential. Now let's talk about the team in last place in the NFC North, and that is the Chicago Bears, the team that lost in that. It was a great comeback in that game against Detroit on Thanksgiving, but they come up short. I watched the end of that game and I'm just flabbergasted. I think I texted the group and I said, I sent the Buzz Lightyear, there's no sign of intelligent life here meme
Yeah,
because I'm just like, how do you let that happen? And to me, that comes down to coaching. Bill Belichick says players win games, coaches lose games. You've got 30 some seconds. I mean, they drive down there, the Bears drive down there. Caleb gets sacked. He gets sacked again. They have a timeout. There's 36 seconds left. They're trying to line up. He's trying to call the receivers back. You see they're not exactly in a great position. Are you a little bit out of field goal range? Yes, but if you call the timeout right after the sack or when you see like they're trying to get lined up, let's say you got 30 seconds left, you can still throw the ball over the middle.
yeah,
Get up there, spike it real quick, and be able to still kick the field goal. Because you can't take the timeouts home. You
yeah.
can't use them next week. I just think that was. I mean, you had to fire him after that. And in the last, and they're what is 7 or 8 weeks, 7 or 8 losses. What do they have? 8 losses this year. Um, yeah, 4-8, and they've lost 6 in a row. I put 4 of 6 of them right on Eberflus,
Yeah,
right on
yeah.
the coaching.
I think you had to fire him after that. I don't get me wrong. I think Caleb Williams taking those 2 sacks. He shouldn't have taken those. He should have, thrown the ball out of bounds. But he's a rookie, so I don't put that on him. I don't put the loss on him nearly as much as I put it on Eberflus. I think his time management, his clock management was terrible. And then in addition to that, uh, losing the game in that fashion, but then going down, doubling down in the media the next couple of days and saying, "Yeah, I think I played that well. I think that situation was well."
Yeah.
That
Well,
right there just
he
shows
said,
me that there's no
yeah, he said
clock
in the post
management or
game,
anything like that.
he said in the post game that it went the way they wanted to. They was fine with it, whatever. And at first he said, if it got down to if the play was less than 7 seconds, then he said, "Oh, I mean 12 seconds." Well, it was less than 12 seconds when the play went off, and you like as a coach, you cannot rely on your quarterback, who's a rookie quarterback who's processing enough as it is. You have a backup center, and you have a brand new play caller who's now the interim head coach. Like you as a head coach need to be on the same page and know what's going on. And if you're not, you call that timeout, you set up the next play, you set up the rest of the game and say, this is what's
Yeah,
going to, we're going to try this. If this is incomplete, because it was third down, this is incomplete. Are we going to try to kick the field goal, or are we going to try to go for it on fourth down? It was like fourth and no, it was like 4th and 13, I think, or something like that. But at the end of the day, like they only needed about 5 yards to kick a field goal.
Yeah.
To get in range. But yeah, it's
yeah. I mean,
to me, it's just unexcusable.
In my opinion, you have 30, 40 seconds left. You call that timeout. You get into the huddle. You call 2 plays. You say we're going to if we've got the option, we're gonna hit him over the middle. They've got Keenan Allen. He's a great great route runner. He can go over the middle and catch that ball. You get up there, spike the ball. I mean, that's your next 2 plays right there. We know exactly what we're gonna do. We're targeting Keenan Allen first. If Keenan Allen's not there, then we're targeting whoever else second. And you know that you have the time because of the timeout to coordinate yourself, to gather yourself. You know what you're doing, and then as soon as you get that ball, you need to go down and we need to gather all of the troops up and spike the ball. But
yeah, it's inexcusable, like I said, and it just can't happen. You can't lose a game by running out of time when you have a timeout.
With a timeout, yep.
So with Eberflus gone, you've got now 3 openings in the NFL. I've heard anywhere from 7 to 9 potential openings by the end of the year. With Eberflus gone, though, you also have Robert Saleh got fired after what was it, week 5, yeah. And Dennis Allen fired in New Orleans. Now the president of the Bears said that they were the best. They were going to be the best opening for anybody in the league. My thing is, if you go to Chicago and you win, you are on pedestal status. You are just, at that point of, like guys from the '85 Bears still never have to buy a drink.
Yeah.
The Cubs when they won the World Series, like these guys are just on the next level. Chicago's one of the, top 3, 4 media markets in all the NFL. If I'm the Bears, I'm calling Ben Johnson and I'm backing up the Brinks truck and telling him, what is it going to take to get you here? You just saw on the other side of the field what you could be working with. Would a guy like him work there better or a Mike Rabel?
So I think a guy like Ben Johnson would work better. I think they need an offensive coach. I think Chicago's a defensive culture in general. It's got very similar vibes to Pittsburgh, but the difference is Pittsburgh's a winning city. They've won a lot of Super Bowls, and their mentality is they win. Mike Tomlin has never had a losing season. But what I would do if I was the Bears is I'd be on the phone with San Francisco trying to get Kyle Shanahan.
So that was going to be my next question.
I think if I'm the Bears now, who knows with the Bears? They don't love spending a lot of money usually in the past. They don't really usually trade away a lot of draft picks either. But if I'm the Bears, I'm the GM or I'm the owner of the Bears, I am trying to get Kyle Shanahan there. Kyle Shanahan is a coach that I don't think is on the hot seat, but I think he is in a very difficult situation where San Francisco's not looking like they're gonna turn it around this year, and they're gonna be potentially strapped with an average quarterback, paying him $60 million a year, aging star players like Nick Bosa, Kittle, players who are getting older and getting more injury prone. I think he could easily go to the Bears and turn them around. But if you cannot get Kyle Shanahan, then you definitely, in my opinion, need an offensive coach.
So yeah, it's funny because Mike Florio was talking about this, Pro Football Focus. He was talking about this week. How, why don't teams do the John Gruden to Tampa route the way back in the early 2000s? I think it was after the 2001 season, 2002, somewhere in there, when essentially the Raiders traded John Gruden to Tampa, and I think they traded like 2 first-round picks or something for him, and they ended up winning the Super Bowl. They
Yeah.
needed an offense. They had a defensive culture there. They needed an offensive mind. So somebody like a Kyle Shanahan who may need a reset in San Francisco. They've been banging on the door for the last 7, 8 years. Is it time for a reset? Like you said, paying Purdy. You've got some older talent. They're looking across. They're looking down the Pacific Coast Highway there to LA and seeing how LA, other than their quarterback, is getting much younger, as you would know. So, do you decide to, go in a different direction, or somebody like a um, John Harbaugh with the Ravens? He's been there a long time, but maybe is it time for him to reset? Now, I don't think he's going to go anywhere. I think he's
Yeah.
a lifer with the Ravens. I mean, other than he's the second oldest tenured coach behind Tomlin in the league, and they were 1 year apart. Now that Belichick's gone, so but let's say the Ravens go in, they're 1 and out. Maybe he's looking for a reset.
Yeah, I don't. I agree that like maybe John Harbaugh, maybe the Ravens are looking at that. I think it's more likely with Kyle Shanahan, just because it's a very with John Harbaugh, um, it's a much better situation. You have your quarterback, Lamar. There's nobody doubting that Lamar Jackson's a top 3, top 5 quarterback in the league. You have a great
Is
running
he?
back. I think he is. I definitely think he is. I mean, he
He
is probably going to go down as one of the best, if not the best, dual threat quarterback. Now, do I think that he needs to? I think he's kind of gone away from running it. I think he has heard the criticisms and he has tried to pass more instead of using his legs. But that's a whole different story. I
I
think
mean,
the
I've
Ravens
seen
are.
games where he just completely misses guys who are wide open.
I think that's gotten better. I mean, he's got what does he have? The best passer rating in the league right now. It's hard to do that if you're not a good quarterback.
I get it. I don't know if Lamar's a top 5. I know he's got
But
won 2 MVPs, but
either way, I think Lamar's better than Purdy for sure. Um, and the Ravens have a better roster, not maybe not a better roster, but better potential on their roster than the San Francisco does, just solely because of the injuries. I mean, McCaffrey is going to be looks like he's going to be out again. He's definitely
he's
past his
he's
peak.
done for the rest of the season. I mean,
Yeah,
the only way he could come back is if they somehow make the playoffs, which I don't see happening.
yeah. So, and he's on the bottom end of his peak. Like he's past his prime. Kittle's getting old for his age. Uh, you're losing a lot of pieces. Trent Williams is getting old. Uh, so I agree. San Francisco is looking down at LA and seeing how much younger they're getting, and now, in my opinion, Seattle's a quarterback away. If they hit on a very good quarterback, they're going to be a tough team. I think their defense is strong, and Arizona is looking much better too. I think they're one draft away from being an actual contender. One good draft away. Um, and don't get me wrong, I understand what injuries can do. I'm a Rams fan. We've seen injuries a lot in the last 3 years, so I understand that. But I think if I'm Chicago, I am trying to get Kyle Shanahan more than John
Yeah,
Harbaugh.
I think. I think Ben Johnson is your number one because you're not giving up draft picks to trade for him, and he's in your division. He knows, he's familiar with your team. He's familiar with Caleb. I think that's the guy that you go after. Now, when it comes to other spots, from what I understand, like Belichick going to Jacksonville is pretty high on the hot list
Possibility.
from what I've read and heard. Mike Vrabel, that's going to be interesting. Where does he go? Because he's a defensive guy, but he doesn't call plays. He's more of a, you
Picture
know,
builder.
sort of general administrator type of guy. But, that's a guy that if he went to Chicago, he's tough, he's gritty, he understands clock management. I mean,
Yeah.
uh,
Yeah.
but I think wherever he goes, because of how he went out in Tennessee, he's going to want more control
Yeah.
of the roster. Where I don't think Poles, obviously, he's done a pretty good job there in Chicago. So I think Vrabel's going to want more control. So it'll be interesting to see where he may end up. And
And I think there are going to be more openings than what we. I think there's going to be one or two crazy openings, which could be San Francisco if Kyle Shanahan leaves. But I also think if Philly, goes into the playoffs and gets bounced in the first round, I think Nick Sirianni could be on the hot seat.
yeah, I don't know. I mean, Philly's just a weird, kooky place.
They
And
fired Andy Reid for less.
no, I get it. I mean, they fired Doug Peterson a couple years after he won a Super Bowl.
Yeah.
So, but at the end of I think Vrabel. If I were to guess, if I were to put my money on it, I think he's going to Vegas.
Yeah.
Because he's got a connection already with Brady there. It's warm. It's the AFC, which he's familiar with, and I think he can get sort of carte blanche of how he wants to run the program. Because obviously they're going to have to bring in a quarterback. They're going to have to draft a quarterback. Whether it's Sanders or Cam Ward, it's going to be one of those two more than likely at the top of the draft. The Jets, I don't know who the hell is going to want that job.
Yeah.
They may be the worst franchise in football. No, but think about it. For the last 20 years, now they made two runs to the AFC title game when they had Rex Ryan as their coach, and they had the butt fumble as their quarterback. But that was ground and pound. That was good defenses. But I just look at it like I think they're one of the worst organizations in the NFL, especially now that Snyder's gone from Washington. It's a disaster there.
I think the Jets could get Rex Ryan back. I think he could, I think he would be a good fit.
He put a video out that says he would come back. Like he understands the culture. He understands Jets fans.
I think he would be a good option to come back, especially if Woody Allen is at the Jets owner.
No, not Woody. Woody Allen's a movie director and actor. Woody Johnson.
Woody Johnson, yeah.
Johnson and Johnson. Come on.
Yeah, Woody Johnson. I think he's going to be an ambassador. I think he's not going to want to.
More than likely, he's probably going to be an ambassador, which he turned when he became an ambassador. He turned everything over before to his brother.
Exactly. So I imagine he's going to become an ambassador again, and I think Rex Ryan's going to get a lot more control, and he's going to be able to run the organization kind of how he wants to, at least for a little while.
But is Rex a little out of touch? I mean, these coaches that you've seen hired in the last couple cycles have all been throwing arm around you, warm and fuzzies, because, players nowadays, it's not like it was even 10, 15 years ago. So, that's like the Belichicks of the world. When you're not winning, like you're an asshole.
Yeah.
and you start losing the locker room. So is that, is he a guy that is maybe a little out of touch with the NFL today? That's what I would be concerned about.
Yeah, that is definitely a concern. He's also not an offensive guy, which is where the league's going. So that's another concern. But when you're once again, as you mentioned earlier, a couple minutes ago, you're not going to have very many options. If you're the Jets, you're not, in my opinion, you're not going to have very many options, especially if Rodgers stays there, which I don't think he will.
Yeah, I mean, it's still one of 32 teams. There's only so many of those jobs in the NFL. It's only one of 32. So somebody, they're going to be able to get somebody. But like if I'm a Ben Johnson,
I don't want to go there.
I'm not even interviewing with you.
Yeah, I agree.
There's only going to be a few spots that I would even be interested in.
Yeah.
So
I think Ben Johnson, unlike the last 2 years where Ben Johnson kind of interviewed with like everybody that had an opening, Ben Johnson interviewed with. I think this year he might only interview with 2, maybe 3 teams.
yeah, because he doesn't have to leave.
Yeah.
He's going to probably end up being one, if he stays, one of the highest paid coordinators. So, and you've got a winning organization, so he doesn't, have to leave, unless it's a
This
great
is the right job.
fit. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree.
Okay.
Glasses have been fucking annoying me this.
Did you get your new glasses?
Oh no, they arrived.
No, I don't know. I'm just asking.
No, I haven't. I haven't checked the mail today, but
Okay. All right.
I'll have you check after. Hold on, before you go. I don't have my glasses. They were just so dirty before. They've been bugging me this whole time.
So the Friday game last week, we had Vegas at Kansas City. Once again, Vegas is driving. They're in line to potentially kick the winning field goal. You had a snap that came too early, and it was just once again the Chiefs, who have lived on a razor's edge all year long, win another one. They go 11-1, but they have the lowest point differential. I think it's 58 points. Point differential for any team with an 11-1 record in the history of the NFL. What does that, I mean, to me, that tells me I don't want to give the ball to Patrick Mahomes with 2 minutes to go and he has a chance to win the game either.
Yeah.
Because that's still Patrick Mahomes over there. So at the end of the day, I'm like, if you have a chance to win, you better bleed that clock as much, like Denver did. Bleed that clock as much as possible. Now, it was a fluky block and it happens, but don't give him the opportunity to beat you. And like that's what Buffalo did. 4th and 2, ran for it, got a touchdown. Take it out of Mahomes' hand as much as possible.
No, I agree. But with the point differential thing, the last 2 years they've been like that. I mean, last year other than the Miami win in the playoffs, Buffalo scores 24, so the Chiefs score 27. Baltimore scores 10, so the Chiefs score 17. San Francisco scores 22, the Chiefs score 25. All of those games are within one score. Since Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs lost Tyreek Hill, they haven't looked the same, but they're still winning. Don't get me wrong. I don't think we will see the high-flying, high-scoring, prime Patrick Mahomes in his best until they get a true number one receiver again. A Justin Jefferson, Jamar Chase, even if they had somebody like Puka Nacua or DK Metcalf, somebody who can really open it up. I think if they could get somebody like that, it would be different. But it doesn't matter. A win is a win. I am 100% a wins guy. I think that if you win the game, yes, it could look ugly. Okay, you could win it by one score. You could win it by 1 point. But a win is a win. And if they win the Super Bowl again, we're not going to be talking about the 17 to 15 win against the Raiders.
19 to 17.
19 to 17, yeah.
Well, and this is the thing. I get it. They are 11-1. They could lose every game from here to the rest of the season. They're 11-6, which is the same record they had last year, and still be able to win the Super Bowl. But I'm just telling you, it's very tough to win 3 in a row. Nobody's done it in the Super Bowl era. Nobody's done it. The Packers did it when they won the first 2 Super Bowls, and the year before that, they won an NFL championship. So that's the last team to win 3 quote-unquote NFL championships in a row. And that was in the late 60s.
Yeah.
So at the end of the day, it's tough to win. I looked this up too. I thought you would find this interesting. So what year do you think the last team to be the last team to lose? So like Kansas City lost,
Yeah,
they
they
were
lost last. Yeah.
they were 9-0 and they lost to the Bills. So the last team to be the last team to lose in a season and still win the Super Bowl was.
Oh, and still win the Super Bowl? I don't know. The undefeated Miami team. I mean, they didn't lose at all. So
Not the 72 Dolphins. No, there's several after that.
I'm not
The
sure.
last team to be the last team
I
to be
guess
the
a
last
Patriots team, some Patriots team.
the last team to be the last undefeated team to win was the 2006 Indianapolis Colts. They were 9-0. They lost to the Cowboys. They ended up 12-4, and they won the Super Bowl. That was Peyton Manning. Now the next year, Patriots 18-0, lost to the Giants. We don't like to talk about that one, but 2008 Tennessee Titans 10-0, finished 13-3, lost in the division. 2009 Indianapolis Colts were 14-0. They lost to the Jets in Week 15. Ended up 14-2 and lost in the Super Bowl to the Saints. 2011 Green Bay Packers started out 13-0, lost to the Chiefs, ended up 15-1 and lost in the divisional round.
Yeah, I agree, but I think what a lot of the Chiefs are doing right now is, if you look in that Raiders game, if you look, that 3rd down and 2 call where they threw it to Xavier Worthy, I don't think they're calling that in a playoff game. I think they are using the regular season not so much as practice, but as a way to flush out what's working, what's not working, and get some of our younger players, like especially Xavier Worthy, some real life, real high pressure kind of situations. In my opinion, in a playoff game against Buffalo, it's 3rd and 2, end of the game. I think you are not calling that pass to Xavier Worthy. I think you're running some sort of
but if you're this deep in the season and you're still trying to work that out, I think that's a problem.
I don't think they're working anything out. I think they are trying to get some important reps to their players, like Xavier Worthy, trying to make sure he understands the real time pressure situations that the Chiefs are going to end up being in. And last year they threw a bomb to Marquez Valdes-Scantling, and he didn't catch it. And what would they have done if they just stopped throwing to him? In the Super Bowl, they threw a bomb to him and he caught it. They're just trying to.
No, I get it. I mean, but this is the thing. The Chiefs, obviously, they have, the Bills right on their tail with the victory against them. Pittsburgh, I don't think they're going to be able to make up that ground, and so really it's a two-person race. Yeah. 2-man race in the AFC with Kansas City and Buffalo. And I think they both have that Saturday, Sunday, Saturday, Wednesday, 3 games in week 15, 16, 17.
Yeah.
Where they play on Christmas Day, they play on a Sunday, then they play on a Saturday, and then they play on Christmas Day on that Wednesday.
Yeah.
So, against tough opponents.
I agree, but you got to think Kareem Hunt has done great for the Chiefs. He has come in off the street and done well, but he is the only running back. I think there's like 23 running backs with over 150 carries. is the only running back with 0 explosive plays, 0 20-plus yard rushes. He had one
Yeah.
20-plus yard catch, but he had 0 20-plus yard rushes. So now they're getting Isaiah Pacheco back, and they're going to get Hollywood Brown back in 2 weeks. Those are two big players that could really help them on this push. And now you have Kareem Hunt, who can be that anvil kind of running back, the running back who can get you those 2 yards when you need them. But then you have Isaiah Pacheco, who is the explosive. You almost have the Jahmyr Gibbs and Montgomery situation. I don't think Kareem Hunt is nearly as good as Montgomery, but you kind of have that 2-back situation now that Kareem Hunt has proven himself again.
Yeah, it's funny to me because when Kareem Hunt first came in the league, when he was a rookie, he was like so explosive,
Yeah.
Big runs, catching the ball out of the backfield, catching it over the middle. It's funny how things change. And as you get older, you'll start to see more and more of that as, you've seen players. It'll be funny because you'll see players come into the league, go out of the league, go work in the booth or go work on ESPN. You've seen a little bit of that, but from players from your youth, Tom Brady or Pat McAfee or whatever. But, now that you're in your, like, players at your age, that come into the league, you'll see them go out in the next couple of years. It's just kind of funny.
But I mean, I think the Chiefs, and honestly, I think the Chiefs are going to get better. I think what they are right now, they are going to be better than what they are right now, solely because they're getting 2 of their best offensive pieces back.
But Buffalo's getting some of their defensive pieces back too.
I agree.
So, and the one thing is, I mean, as we've seen, it doesn't matter. The cold doesn't bother either one of these teams.
Correct.
So if they're playing in Kansas City, they're playing in Buffalo, that doesn't matter. Or
stadium noises, stuff like that doesn't bother them either.
Yeah, so I think, like you said, 2-horse race in the AFC. We shall see. All right. So where are we at?
Talk about MVP.
Yeah.
MVP and Offensive Rookie of the Year. We talked about the Eagles. We talked about the Lions. Yeah, so.
Well, we can sort of talk about Buffalo and the Eagles a little bit with the MVP race.
Yeah.
Okay. So, speaking of 2-horse races, man, the MVP race is basically a two-man race between Josh Allen, who I think is, in my opinion, the clear-cut MVP, but you got Saquon Barkley. Now, Barkley ends up breaking the all-time rushing record, and Philadelphia ends up with the number 1 seed. I think it's hard to take it away from him.
Yeah, I agree. I think this year, if Barkley does break the record and Philly gets the number 1 seed, and Josh Allen still wins it, or quarterback still wins it, I think that will have solidified, put the nail in the coffin that the MVP is a quarterback only award. There is no. If Barkley does not win it after breaking the rush record, I don't think there'll be a skill position other than the quarterback to win it, at least in the forthcoming future.
Yeah, I mean, Barkley is. You talk about a difference maker on that team. If you remember last year, Philly started out the season, super hot, and then fell off and lost 4 out of their last 5 and so on. Saquon has just been such a difference maker, such a playmaker for that team, and they can load it up on his back and just give it to him down the stretch.
Yeah.
But I'm telling you, Josh Allen is just, as a Patriots fan, I hate to say it, but he's fun to watch.
Yeah, I mean, I think that the Buffalo has a couple tough games still remaining. Eagles' schedule's kind of really weak. They have the Panthers left, then the Steelers, then the Commanders, which are two tough games. Then they have the Cowboys and the
Panthers
Giants.
is not an easy game.
I don't think the Panthers is an easy game, but I think it's easier than the Steelers. I think the
I mean,
Steelers and the Commanders are their two toughest game left.
they should have beat
Toughest
Tampa.
games left.
Carolina should have beat Tampa if Hubbard wouldn't have fumbled there in overtime because they were driving down to kick the extra point. They took Kansas City to overtime. So, Bryce Young is playing really well. I think out of the last few years, the top quarterbacks, I mean, right now in a vacuum, he's probably playing the best.
Yeah, I mean, I don't disagree.
Top few quarterbacks drafted.
Yeah. I don't disagree. Now, don't get me wrong. I am hoping, I'm hoping that the Eagles play well against the Panthers, because I've got Saquon on my fantasy team, and I'd like to lock up that number one bye so that I don't have to play him against.
You already
Pittsburgh.
locked it up.
Oh, but either way,
only 1 week left.
I guess that's true. Yeah. So
you're ahead of me by 2.
Either way, I think the Eagles will play good against the Panthers, but the Buffalo doesn't have an easy schedule either. They play the Rams, who, as a Rams fan, I think the Bills are going to win that game. I hope they don't, but I think they will.
Well, this is the thing. The amount of people that were in Seattle, amount of Bills fans that were in Seattle when they played in Seattle, I can't even imagine what it's going to be like in LA.
Yeah. And then they play the Lions the week after the Rams. So I think the Lions game will be a good testimony to both the Bills, how well the Bills are. And I don't be wrong, I think the Bills are either the number 1 or the number 2 best team in the league right now. But I think it'll definitely show if the Lions' defensive woes are going to be a big problem.
Yeah, I agree.
But back to the MVP talk, I do think that if Saquon Barkley breaks the record and doesn't win the MVP, it'll be, like I've said, it'll be the nail in the coffin for the MVP is a quarterback only award. If Saquon Barkley, no matter what, in my opinion, if Josh Allen wins the MVP, Saquon Barkley's got to have the Offensive Player of the Year.
Oh, I think he's already got that locked up.
Yeah.
I mean, earlier this season I said Derrick Henry, but I think it's Saquon Barkley it's not even close for Offensive Player of the Year.
Yeah.
So, but this is the problem. What they do a lot is they give the quarterback the MVP and they give the best non-quarterback an Offensive Player of the Year.
Yeah, I mean, Cooper Kupp had the Triple Crown a couple of years ago when we won the Super Bowl, I think, and he didn't get the MVP. He got the Offensive Player of the Year. I think that was the year that Patrick Mahomes won MVP.
So, yeah, I just feel like it's a 2-man race. I think Lamar's played his way out of it. Derrick Henry's, I mean, if Baltimore was, 9-3, 10-2, then yeah, I think they're right there in it. But I just don't see it.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I could not imagine being a Giants fan nowadays. I mean,
oh my gosh,
it would be terrible because you lost Saquon Barkley and it's just
you basically picked Daniel Jones over Barkley.
Yeah, and now you just cut Daniel Jones.
And you could have potentially brought Barkley back for another $2 million this year.
Yep.
And he, you told him, you basically said, because if you watch Hard Knocks, you basically said, there's nobody that's going to go out there and pay him like that.
Yeah.
Well, when you're one of the best running backs in the league and a game changer, they will. I mean, and there's only really 3 of those type of players in the NFL right now. And I know some of these younger kids like Gibbs and who's the kid in Atlanta? Um,
And Atlanta, Bijan Robinson.
yeah, Robinson. They have the potential to get there, but really it's only three, and that's Barkley, Derrick Henry, and a healthy Christian McCaffrey.
Yeah.
That are that high end, change your team dynamic type of players.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think there are some young people, like you said, like Gibbs, and I like to throw in Kyron Williams, and a couple other young running backs that are getting there. But I think they still need another year or two to really show that they can put the team on their back like Barkley and like Henry can.
Yeah, and Genty coming into the league next year out of Boise State could be one of those type of backs.
Yeah.
But obviously, he's not even in the league as a rookie. But he could be one of those change the game dynamic type of players, running backs. But it's kind of nice to see, like, me growing up, running backs were always the big stars on the team. Quarterbacks, yes, but then running back was like number two, where now it's more receiver over running back. But me growing up, like Barry Sanders and Emmitt Smith and before that, Walter Payton and John Riggins, and stuff like that.
I think that shows the change of
Bo Jackson.
I think that shows the NFL cultural change in general, where much more, it's much higher scoring games nowadays than it was 20 years ago.
Well, the NFL's changed, and it's you can't hit people over the middle, and you can't it's much they try to make it much safer, and they try to and some of it for good, some of it frustrates me. You don't see the big hits like you used to, as much. Like I always say this, like the Sean Taylors of the world and the Ed Reeds and the even Palomar, like some of those guys, I don't know if they could play in today's. I mean, they can play, but it's a different NFL than what they played in when they were, especially coming into the league. But it's nice. It's just nice to see running backs getting more of their due, and hopefully this sort of shifts a little bit of the dynamic for them. That maybe running backs are more important. No, get me wrong. Unlike a receiver, running backs when they get injured, it's usually more devastating. But look at a Nick Chubb. Nick Chubb tore basically everything out of his knee, has come back this year and looked pretty good, on a kind of a bad Browns team. But I'll tell you this, we can segue a little bit into that. If you're the Browns, and you're going to have a pretty high pick. I mean, are you still looking to draft a quarterback and then let Jameis kind of be a mentor and bridge him a little bit?
Yeah. When it comes to the draft, I think the Cleveland is definitely going to need a quarterback because Deshaun Watson's not in. He's not.
The problem is it's a weak quarterback draft. So unless you're getting, to me, Sanders or Ward, after that, the talent kind of falls off. Yeah, and unfortunately, in the past, Cleveland's reached for quarterbacks. Look at Johnny Manziel, look at Colt McCoy. What was his name? Winicky, who was like 27 years old when they drafted him. So you don't want to reach, but maybe you go out and get like a.
I could also see them riding it out one more year with Jameis, and then trying to get a draft.
Jameis is not he's not somebody that I would want to build my franchise around.
No, I don't think they plan on building it around Jameis. But I'm saying, either riding it out with Jameis or maybe getting another veteran quarterback in free market, in the free agency.
Yeah, why wouldn't you? I would go out there and if you're not going to get if you're not going to be in the top 5 and you're not going to get one of those 2 quarterbacks, to me, why not? And free agency happens before the draft, but you're going to know where your draft pick is.
Yeah.
I would go out there and throw a bunch of money at Sam Darnold.
Yeah.
And say, hey, you know what? Come to Cleveland. You saw what Flacco did. You see what Jameis can do. You're kind of familiar with this style of offense. So, come on in. And we're not going to draft anybody because Darnold's like 26, 27 years old, isn't he?
Yeah,
he's not
young.
that old.
He's young. Yeah,
he's younger than a lot of I think he's younger than Burrow.
Yeah, I don't know exactly how old he is, but he is very young. And I mean, I think if you're Cleveland and you can go out and get a veteran, like a Sam Darnold, and then you can draft what's that wide receiver out of Arizona?
McMillan?
Yeah, you can get like a McMillan in the draft. I mean, I think you're looking pretty well. And then next year you can look to try and I think next year is a stronger quarterback draft. So
yeah, he's 27 years old. He'll be 28 by the start of next season, but he's younger than Joe Burrow.
Yeah.
So yeah, to me, I think that could be the play. And I still keep Jameis because he is probably the best backup.
Yeah.
In the league. Yeah, he's younger than Joe Burrow. He's a year younger than Josh Allen, 2 years younger than Baker, 4 years younger than Dak.
Yeah, so, I mean, I think if they go out and get the McMillan from Arizona, and then have a Sam Darnold, it could be good in my opinion. I think it, and you still have Nick Chubb, who's still developing off of his injury, and is definitely looking better than he did the first week he came off of his injury. So Nick Chubb used to be that kind of. I would have classified Nick Chubb in that category with Derrick Henry and Saquon Barkley if he wouldn't have gotten injured.
So right now,
one of those
kind right of now, if the season ended today, the Browns pick 8th.
Yeah, I don't know if they're going to be able to get McMillan.
Yeah, McMillan's going top 4 or 5, more than likely.
I think the Patriots are probably going to get McMillan.
I mean, right now, so I just saw this the other day. The Patriots have the best odds of getting the number 1 overall pick.
Really?
Because if you look at their schedule down the stretch, it is
tough teams.
Brutal. They've got to go to Arizona. Then they play. Then hold on. They got to go to Arizona. They're on a bye this week. All right. Then at Arizona, and then I think Buffalo. Yeah, at Arizona, at Buffalo. Then the Chargers come to Foxborough, and then the Bills come to Foxborough to end the season. I don't think they're winning another game.
Yeah, those are all above 500 or above teams.
Yeah, so I think they're 3-14. So
could easily get them to number 1.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Let me look. So last year, Carolina was what? Because they had the number 1 pick, even though they had to give it to the Bears.
Yeah, I think they were like.
Yeah, I mean they were 2-15. Right now it's.
I did just see though that Jacksonville has ruled out Lawrence for the rest of the season.
So, did that come through?
Yeah, and just saw it pop up on my phone while we were recording.
Let me tell you that hit was, just terrible.
Yeah.
And I tell you, I don't know if you saw the play. So
I did. Yeah.
He hits him. Jaguars players retaliate. And then there was a Jaguars player who gets a penalty, and it ends up being offsetting.
Yeah.
The play doesn't count. To me, a guy thrown out of a game should supersede the guy that is defending his quarterback who just got knocked out.
Yeah. I in general, I always am annoyed with offsetting penalties because you can have a, you know, 70-yard or 50-yard pass interference that offsets with a 5-yard holding, or a 10-yard hold, so I've always been annoyed with offsetting penalties. I think the yardage should offset, but either way, I agree. I think, that was a dirty hit. And then the Jags players are trying to defend their quarterback. They're trying to, defend the fact that Trevor Lawrence just got fucking knocked. Trevor Lawrence just got knocked out. And,
yeah,
I
to me
agree.
that was
annoying.
To me that was just like it can't happen,
Yeah.
But yeah, so I think, and we'll talk a little bit more about, mock drafts and seedings and stuff, as we get a little
As it
closer to
gets
the end of the
closer, yeah.
season. But I'll tell you what, right now, season ended today, Jacksonville has the number 1 pick. Raiders have the number 2, Giants 3, and Patriots 4. So, but I feel like the Patriots have probably the toughest schedule. If you look, against 3 other, there's 4 games, 2 against the same one opponent, and they're all potential playoff teams.
Now the question is, though, if the Patriots do get the number 1 pick, are they taking Travis Hunter, or are they trading now?
Would I take Travis Hunter? So this is the thing. It depends. So if you've got a team like the Raiders or the Giants or somebody who is close to you, at 2 or 3, in the draft, and they're willing to trade up to get somebody. Now, you kind of want that person in the 3rd spot to trade up with you, because if the person in the 2nd spot knows you need a quarterback, then they can trade so nobody else gets it, but they also know if you don't trade, you're not taking a quarterback.
Correct. Yeah.
So what you would want is somebody in the 3rd spot. You'd kind of want like the Raiders and the Giants right there at 2 and 3. Not Jacksonville, because they're not taking a quarterback.
Yeah.
So, if it's 2 and 3, then you trade with one of the 2 of them, one to leapfrog the other to get either Sanders or Ward, and you build, and then you drop down far enough that you can get a Travis Hunter still.
Now, do you think, say Cleveland is the 5th pick overall, and they won, one of the 2 quarterbacks, and we were just talking about Cleveland, so that's why I popped in the head. If Cleveland is, number 5 or 4 or 5 down there somewhere, and they offer you their 1st and next year's 1st, at least,
I think no matter what, if you're number 1 overall, no matter what, you have to get next year's
at least
first.
2s. Yeah, at least 2 1s.
You're probably getting their 1st this year,
their first
next year, and either a 2nd this year or next year.
Yeah.
Preferably this year, because you can build your team faster.
Yeah. I think that's a good deal. I think that's you're going down to 4, so that means that you're probably missing out on Travis Hunter, but you can still get somebody like McMillan.
And the thing is, the thing with Travis Hunter is everything that I've seen and read, and I've watched a lot of tape on him and stuff. He's a better corner than he is receiver. Now, don't get me wrong; there's a very good chance he wins the Heisman. And unlike in the NFL, their top award actually goes to position players. But my thing is, do you play him at corner the majority of his snaps? I mean, he's playing 100+ snaps a game for Colorado on both sides.
Yeah.
But do you play him at corner and then put him on offense for 10, 15 plays a game? Now when he's young, maybe he's he can do more than that. But the NFL is different, and these guys are bigger and they're faster and they're stronger, and you're going up against the best of the best. You're not playing these guys from Colorado State. You're playing.
This is what I think. I mean, if he gets drafted by the Patriots, you're in the you're in the AFC East. That means you're going to see if he's playing both positions. Say he's playing defense almost every snap and offense almost every snap. When you're on offense, you play Miami twice. That means you're going against Jalen Ramsey twice a year. Okay, and then in those same games, just against Miami, you switch to defense. Now you're guarding Tyreek Hill.
Well, you've also got a really good corner next to you on the other side, and that's Christian Gonzalez.
But I'm just saying, like, the NFL is very different, and I don't think you'll be able to sustain the playing on both sides for very
long. Where I think if you play defense the majority of the time and then come in on offense for 10, 15 plays that either is geared towards you or using you as a decoy.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, I look at it this way: the Pats definitely need. I mean, they need They need a lot, but they need a corner. But they need a playmaker. They need a wide receiver on the other side more. So if I'm looking at Travis Hunter, the first thing I'm asking him is, "Where's your heart? Like, where do you want to be?" And I mean, he can say both, but at the end of the day, like, if you only had to pick one, what would it be?
Yeah. No, I agree.
Now his agent's probably going to say, well, you need to say wide receiver because they get paid a whole lot more. But, you got to figure that out. And if not, then McMillan might be the guy that you draft. And he is a absolute stud. Let me tell you.
I think if I'm the Patriots and I move down to 4 and I get McMillan plus another second and a first rounder next year, I'm hella happy. I'm very, very happy with that. And then you don't have to worry about the headache of, don't get me wrong, I think Travis Hunter is a stud, like you said, but you don't have to worry about that, like trying to figure out is he going to play defense? Is he going to play offense? Is he going to split? You don't have to worry about that. And you just get an absolute star player to help not a struggling, but a desperately in need of help, Drake May. So, I mean, that's kind of where I'm at when it comes to the Patriots if they get that first overall pick and they're looking at trading down. So, you're muted. You're muted.
You there?
Yeah.
Yeah, you know how much I love the draft, and I mean, I've been looking at mock drafts since like week 3 or 4.
Yeah.
So, and I really enjoy college football. I'm not a junkie, but I follow it enough that I know and obviously knowing the top teams and knowing the players and looking at mock drafts and looking at who to follow. And I'll tell you what, that Michigan Ohio State game was so fun to watch for me. I have become a Michigan fan because of how much I hate Ohio State.
Because of the hatred of Ohio State. Yeah.
And it's Ohio State fans. They're like Cowboy fans. They're the worst. They're delusional. It's just, to me, it's, oh man, I was so happy that they beat Ohio State, and it was just glorious. Like 4 in a row. They're reeling out there in Columbus, and you look at the and I just cannot wait for the college football playoffs. Like, it's going to be so fun. You've got big games for the championship weekend. You got in the SEC, you got Texas and Georgia. Oregon playing Penn State. So this is the thing. If Georgia beats Texas, Penn State beats Oregon, who's the number one seed going to be? Like, that's going to be crazy.
Yeah.
So, I think Oregon is the best team in college football right now. But, it's, yeah, and having home game for playoff games, it's, like right now, Alabama's going to Notre Dame.
Yeah.
Like, how fun is that going to be to watch?
Yeah.
So,
No, I agree. I think I think this year is going to be a very fun year for college football, especially since it's the first one with 12 teams. So you know it's going to be fun, and I agree having those home games and having those different games that like you don't usually see or not nearly as often. So I'm very excited for college football playoffs.
speaking of college football, a little close to home for us, um, WVU just fired their coach, Neil Brown. Um, I have asked around a little bit to see who sort of the potential
So
candidates are for the coaching job. And, I've heard, Jimbo Fisher, who won a national championship with Florida State, with Jameis Winston, actually, back in, I think, 2012 or 13, somewhere in there. Um, is number one, and he's a West Virginia native. He's from Clarksburg. He lives there, from what I understand, on a huge compound. He's just at Texas A&M and didn't do well because they they spent a lot of money on NIL, but they just couldn't make it work. As Nick Saban said, it was the best roster money could buy. You know, from in Vegas, he is the favorite to take the job, but from I was listening to Hoppy Kercheval the other day, and he said it's like 100 to 1 for him to take the job. You've got the offensive coordinator at Penn State. You got the Tulane coach. Um, People talk about Rich Rod coming back, and I'm one of the people on the other end of I do not want Rich Rod back. There's a large portion of the fan base who was very angry for the way he left back in 2007. We had a national championship team. We lose to Pitt in the last game of the season. We don't go to the national championship game, and that's back before you had even four teams. It was just two, and then he leaves for Michigan and falls on his face there. I'm not a big supporter of wanting Rich Rod back. The Army coach I've heard is on the short list, so it'll be interesting to see who they bring in. It's going to be
yeah,
somebody that has some experience, or one of these younger guys that's kind of coming up the ranks. You know,
yeah,
preferably like the Penn State offense coordinator. I'd be okay. Somebody that's been at a big program, and not if you're not bringing in a veteran, somebody who's got experience, because Nick Saban ain't coming. Let me just tell you
yeah,
that.
yeah,
That's not happening. I don't care how much money you throw at him. The man doesn't need any money. He's living his best life down there in Alabama. Warm and warm and sunshine. You know, he's eating his cream pies every morning with Miss Terry. He's good.
yeah,
So he ain't coming. So Jimbo is an option, but if you're going to get somebody, we talked about like Ben Johnson earlier, somebody that's been on a winning big time program that maybe is coming up the ranks, rather than one of these guys that are from a smaller school who have been a head coach, much like Neil Brown, who come in, and I think sometimes it can just
get
be a little too big
overwhelmed.
for them.
Yeah, no, I agree. I agree. I think that I would prefer a younger coach, that has been at a bigger school than somebody that, like you said, somebody from a small school but has been a head coach. I'd rather a coordinator that's young but is at a currently big program.
So we talked about the playoffs earlier. Kind of playoff predictions, that sort of thing. I think the AFC is locked up as far as the teams that are going to make it. I think 1 through 7. I don't think the Dolphins have enough. They're too much of in a hole, and it's just a matter of positioning. You know, is Baltimore? Will Baltimore stay, or will Pittsburgh stay where they're at? Baltimore, because they still have to play again. Even though I think they're 2 games behind them now, but can they make a run and try to jump up there? If Kansas City sort of falters down the stretch, they have a big game this weekend against the Chargers on Sunday night. If the Chargers win that game, they're 9-4. Kansas City's 11-2. They're right there too. That's not out of the realm of possibility. I don't think it'll happen, but it could. And Buffalo, will they stay at 2? Will they jump to 1? Denver, I just don't feel like they're far enough ahead, but I don't think they're moving from the 7th seed.
Yeah, I agree. I think the NFC is much more contested. I think you're going to get. I don't think the Falcons are going to stay. I think the Bucks are going to make the playoffs over the Falcons, and then it comes down to the NFC West, which if I was not only as a Rams fan, but also I just don't trust Geno. I don't think the Seahawks are going to stay, whether that's going to be Carolina or the Rams. Both of them are only 1 game back. I think that's definitely a possibility. And I think for the West especially, it's going to be settled out towards the end here because the Rams play. I know the Rams schedule at least. They play all of their teams, all of the other teams. So San Francisco, Seattle, and Arizona. There's 4 games left. They play all 3 of those teams one more time. We play Buffalo. The Rams play Buffalo, and then they play. I'm not exactly sure what order, but then it is Seattle, Arizona, and 49ers. So I think the NFC West could be the very last game decides it. The week 18 decides that division.
Well, and I say this, but with McCaffrey out and just that team so banged up, I think the 49ers have even though I know they're only 2 games back in Seattle, it's a long shot for them to make it. So it's really a 3-person race, three team race between Seattle, Arizona, and LA. And really anybody can win in that division.
Right.
Seattle's 2-2 in the division. Arizona and LA are both 2-1, so it's it's very close as far as divisional record too. So, Atlanta to me I just don't see it.
They're circling the drain. I think they're
circling the drain.
Made fun of them at the beginning of the year for drafting Michael Penix, but my thing is they drafted Michael Penix and gave Kirk Cousins $150 million or however much, $100 million.
Well, Kurt just in that game against the Chargers, he looked old.
Yeah,
he looked really old. His arm looked weak. It to me, it was just it's kind of sad. So, I look at it. I know they've got 2 wins over Tampa. They're tied 6-6, and that's the difference there. Atlanta's point differential, they're minus 34.
Yeah. Well, I think Tampa's getting Tampa has Mike Evans back, and I think that's going to be a big game changer.
Yeah.
I think Tampa could go. I'm not. Let me check their schedule. I'm not exactly sure their schedule remaining of the season. So they play Raiders, which they should win. Then they play the Chargers, which is a tough game. Then the Cowboys, they should win. Then the Panthers, they should win. And then they finish it with the Saints. So I could easily see them going 4-1 in their last 5 games. So
if they go 4-1, they're 10-7. And
let me look at the Falcons schedule real quick. Just
I don't know if Atlanta has enough in the tank.
me see. The Falcons schedule. So they play the Vikings this week. That's a tough game. The Raiders, they should win. Giants, they should win. Then they play the Commanders. That's another tough game.
Yeah,
And then
in
they play the
Washington.
Falcons. Then they play the Panthers,
Panthers.
which even though I just said the Tampa should win, I think Tampa's playing better than the Falcons, and I think that's a tough game for the Falcons.
Yeah, this is the thing. If Tampa, I mean, this is the thing. If Tampa wins this week over the Raiders, and the Saints lose to
the Vikings,
the Bucks, to the Raiders, it's 4 losses in a row for Atlanta. Do they look at a Michael Penix and say, hey, we need a spark?
Yeah. I agree.
It's sometimes that's how it works.
I mean, if you're going to start Michael Penix, I would do it not this game because, like I said, the Falcons are going against the Vikings. But, I mean, the Raiders and the Giants, those could be 2 games where Michael Penix could get some good reps and like you said, give him a spark.
Even though, they're both right there. I mean, only one team's coming out of that division.
Yeah.
Just like I think only one team's coming out of the West, and you're going to get 2 teams out of the East, more than likely, in Washington and Philly, and then 3 out of the North between Detroit, Minnesota, and Green Bay. Yeah. So, now this is the thing. Who has a better chance of winning their first-round game? Because you're going to have 2 rookie quarterbacks here, more than likely. So, is it Washington or Denver?
Washington. Well, it depends on who's at that number 2 seed. If it is, I don't know. That's tough because
when you think about it, Denver's going to play either Kansas City or Buffalo,
and
Washington's going to play. I mean, if they stick in the 7th seed, which more than likely they will, because they're 8-5 right now.
Green Bay's playing very well.
Yeah, Green Bay, Minnesota, Detroit. To me, any one of those teams could end up with the 1 seed.
Well, I think there's a likelihood. This is how I could see it playing out. Is I could see Detroit losing a game or 2 in the last couple games. I think I could see them losing 2 games, dropping, Minnesota beating them. Minnesota's now the 2 seed. Minnesota's the 2 seed. Philly's the 1 seed, and now Detroit's the 5 seed. I could see that happening, and if it's if it's Washington at Minnesota, I could see that's a much easier game for Jaden Daniels than Bo Nix at Buffalo.
I agree. I think there's no shot of Denver winning that first round game, no matter who they play.
I agree.
And don't get me wrong, I we're going to talk about offensive rookie of the years here in a second, but that it's Denver is about a year ahead of where I think they thought they would be. Yeah. I picked them to come in last in the division. One, you just don't know how a rookie quarterback's going to fare coming into the league. But I thought the Raiders would do a little bit better coming off a decent finish to the last season. Now, not like Gardner Minshew is, we talked about that before, a great starter, but I thought they would be, their defense would be a little bit better, having Devontae Adams, that sort of thing. Yeah. Anyway, I didn't think the Raiders were going to be a playoff team, but I thought they would be a little bit better than Denver. So obviously, I was wrong there. Denver's lighting it up. But yeah, I think if Washington has to go to Philadelphia, well, they got to play them again in what, a week or 2?
Yeah.
So, that's one of those, like, now you're going to have a different Jaden Daniels, because I don't know how much of that Tennessee game you looked at. Like he looked way better.
Again. Yeah, he looks healthy again, and I think that could be a dangerous if Jaden Daniels can stay healthy, and I think he is a dangerous quarterback, and that is I think him and Terry McLaurin are a dangerous combo.
Yeah, and they're on the bye this week, so
he's only going to get healthier.
It's he's on the bye this week, so they come out. They go to New Orleans, which New Orleans is playing a little bit better, but I don't know if they have enough to beat Washington.
Yeah, definitely not.
And then a big game with Philly coming into FedEx Northwest Stadium, whatever they call it now.
Yeah.
And this is the thing. Who does Philly play this week? Are they on a bye?
I think it's an easy. They play. Eagles play the Panthers this week. Yeah, that's what I think. It's a team they should win this week.
They're 12.5-point favorites.
Yeah.
But as we've seen,
I'd take the Panthers and the points in that one. I don't think they're going to win, but 12.5 points is a lot of points.
It's in Philadelphia. I'll tell you, Philly's playing amazing, though. I mean, Quentin Mitchell and Cooper DeJean, I mean, when they got basically the two best corners in the draft, it's just, and Carter's
their defense went from middle / slightly below average last year to number 1 or 2 in the league.
Yeah, Carter's playing lights out, and I remember when he got drafted. I think it was 9th or 10th when he fell to the Eagles, and I was just like, they probably got the best defensive player in the draft. He's and I mean he fell because of some off the field issues or whatever. Davis is playing probably the defensive tackle, probably playing the best that I've seen him play his whole career. So Philly, I mean, they should absolutely beat the Carolina, but stranger things happen, but you can't bank on that.
Yeah.
Philly's got who they have down the stretch. Well, after that, they got the Steelers.
Yeah.
And then the Commanders, and then Cowboys, Giants. So
they've got 2 tough games remaining. Like we talked about earlier, they have 2 tough games remaining, but I think they're probably going to I do think that there is the NFC has a lot more, shiftability. There's going to be a lot more movement in the NFC than there's going to be in the AFC.
Yeah, because in the AFC, there's a couple more teams that have a chance, and definitely the seedings are going to get mixed up. Yeah, I was just looking here. Yeah, Philly has a 97% chance to win the division because there's 3 games ahead of Commanders, and they basically have 2 tough games down the stretch against the Commanders and the Steelers. So even if they lose both of those and the Commanders win out, they're still a game ahead.
Still a game behind,
yeah. So speaking of, we talked about Jayden Daniels and Bo Nix. I feel like it's a 2-man race for Offensive Rookie of the Year right now, except my boy Brock Bowers could potentially, bust that up. He is. Well, one thing that we're going to do in the off season, like at the end, probably after the Super Bowl, before the draft, though, is I want to do a redraft.
Yeah.
Of what we know, knowing what we know today before free agency. So knowing what we know today, maybe we'll do that in the week between the conference championship games and the Super Bowl. Knowing what we know now, how would we redraft? So
yeah, I mean, I think Jayden Daniels is still number 1 in my opinion. He was my number 1 when we did this a couple weeks ago. He's still my number 1. I think Bo Nix is playing very well, but if you take out that 90-yard touchdown that he had that game, he was. If you would take out that touchdown, he was 0-2. He threw 2 interceptions, no touchdowns, and he had sub 200 yards passing. So I agree. I think Bo Nix is very good, and I think that Sean Payton is Bo Nix is definitely benefiting from having Sean Payton. But I think Jaden Daniels is better, and I think Jaden Daniels is currently the one of the best young quarterbacks in the league.
Yeah, I'm just looking at stats here. So the thing is, from what I saw this the other day, Caleb is on pace to have better numbers than CJ Stroud did last year. More passing yards, more touchdowns.
Yeah.
So unfortunately, he's on a team that is not going to go to the playoffs, because of an idiot coach. So, you've got, right now he's got 14 touchdown passes. Jaden Daniels got 15. Bo Nix has 17. And actually, Daniels and Nix are right around the same as far as passing yards.
But how many rushing yards does Daniels have and rushing touchdowns? Because that's what separates them, in my opinion. Is Jaden Daniels?
No, I understand. Yeah, he's got 590 rushing touchdowns. All right, 590 rushing yards and 16 touchdowns. All right, six rushing touchdowns.
Yeah, so I mean, you add up
21 total touchdowns.
Yeah, that's what 21. So that's what 5 more than the next rookie. So
well, let me look.
Yeah, I was just saying.
Let me look at Bo Nix here. So Bo Nix has 304 rushing yards and 4 rushing touchdowns.
Okay, so
he's got 21 also.
So they got the same amount of touchdowns.
But he's got 8 interceptions, and Daniels has 6. So,
and I think it's close.
Daniels has a quarterback rating of 99.4, where Nix is 87.9. I think those first two games that Nix had, where they were 0-2 and he threw a couple bad picks and everything, definitely put him behind.
Yeah, and Jaden Daniels had that one, crazy stretch where he had like the best passer rating that a rookie's ever had.
Oh yeah,
or close to it. So, I do think, and I think Jaden Daniels has been playing hurt. He has not been playing 100%. And I think these next 5 games, if he is playing 100% and he doesn't get injured again, he'll start to separate even more.
Yeah. Now I will say, I'll throw a little shout out to my boy, Drake May.
Drake May,
who has done more. Who has done more with less, and actually, he's only started. He's played in 9 games. He's really only finished because the game against the Jets was mop-up time, and then the second game against the Jets, he only played basically a quarter. So I would say in 7 games, he has 11 touchdown passes. So, it's what the cool thing is, I think we have at least 4 solid quarterbacks coming out of this draft. This could be the best quarterback draft since 1984. So, and I mean, you have the 2004 draft where you had Eli, Phillip Rivers, and Ben Roethlisberger. But was it 83 or 84? Yeah, you had John Elway, Jim Kelly, Dan Marino. So you got 3 Hall of Famers right there. Ken O'Brien for the Jets, who actually was a decent player. He was a Pro Bowler. And then you had Tony Eason for the Patriots, who went 15. He took the Patriots to the Super Bowl, in 1985, where they got destroyed by the Bears. So, this could, like I said, this could be the best quarterback draft since 1983. I mean, it's way too early to say, but the 4 quarterbacks who have gotten the majority of the work, none of them look like busts to me.
Yeah, I agree. And then you still have 2 quarterbacks who we haven't seen anything from.
Yeah, JJ and Penix.
Yeah. So, I agree that that this could end up being. I think the average is like half of the quarterbacks drafted in the first round are busts or something like that. So
I think it's probably more than that.
So if we do get, even if we do get, just say we get 4 out of the 6 that were drafted in the first round are decent players, maybe not all Hall of Fame players, but all, career
Pro
starters.
bowlers, Pro Bowlers take their team to the playoffs. You know, um, doesn't necessarily mean they're Hall of Famers, but take their team to the playoffs. You know, win a Super Bowl, go to a Super, like,
Yeah,
be productive.
yeah. I mean, I think definitely, I agree. I think that um, you could have um, a top, you know, top
They
5
all have
best
the ability to
draft.
be. They all have the ability to be top top 10, top 15 quarterbacks.
Yeah, no, I agree.
I mean, I think right now all four of them are in the top 20.
Yeah, yeah, oh yeah, for sure. I agree.
All right, we got a top 5. Thanksgiving's over with, Matthew. We're looking at Christmas here in what, 2.5 weeks, 3 weeks.
Oh,
So we're gonna do our top 5 favorite Christmas movies. So we're getting to that time of the year where we're starting to watch Christmas movies. I know I have my favorites. What are your top 5?
well, I think you're the movie guy, and I started last week with the video games because I'm the video game guy. I think you should take us off on this one.
Okay, that's fine. So I have one honorable mention, and that is a movie that I was a little late to the party. I didn't watch it when it first came out, but I tend to watch it usually every year, and it cracks me up every time. I think the first time I watched it might have been with you, and that's The Night Before with Seth Rogen and the what's his name, Anthony Mackie,
Yeah,
the Falcon, where they go out night before um, Christmas, and I mean the baby scene where the Seth Rogen, who's a Jew, is in the Catholic Church, and he's that. I mean, no matter
yeah,
what, every
yeah.
year that cracks me up.
No, I
So
agree.
Run DMC, uh, them karaoke. I mean, it's great, but it didn't make my top 5. So number 5 on my list is one that came out when I was a kid in the '80s. Believe it or not, even though it looks like a really old movie, it's not as old as people think. But I quote that line every year for Christmas. It is, I quote this movie every year at Christmas. It's got so many iconic, uh, things in it, and that's A Christmas Story. You know, between the lamplight and You'll Shoot Your Eye Out, and just so many things, like his brother not being able to put his arms down. You know, stuff reminds me of that every year. So that's number 5 for me. Number 4 is it's a lot higher on a lot of other people's lists, but there's just other movies I like so much more. But number 4 is another movie I was a little late to the party for. I didn't see it when it originally came out. And it's a movie that my wife, your mother, absolutely hates. And that's Elf. She is not a fan. I don't know why, because I think it's hilarious. I love Will Ferrell um, in that role. And it's just, they were going to make an Elf 2 and didn't work out. But you think about it too, because of Elf, Jon Favreau got the chance to direct Iron Man, which set up the MCU, which set up so much geekdom for the rest, for the last 15 years. So, I hope you find your dad. Elf is number 4 on my list. Number 3 is a movie that I saw in the theater, and I watch it every year, and it gets me every time, especially the ending, and that's Love Actually. So it is, to me, that's a Christmas staple. It's my generation's sort of Christmas go-to feel good type of movie. Sort of similar, like back in the day with, um, movies that came out way before my generation. To me, I think that's one of the best. And it's got such. If you look at the cast and what they went on to do, it's amazing. You know, what they did, but it gets me every time. It makes me laugh, makes me cry. Love Actually. Number two, and yes, it is a freaking Christmas movie. I'm gonna look at you right in the eye because I know who you are. Die Hard. Die Hard is a Christmas movie. I don't care what you say. It takes place on Christmas Eve. When he gets the machine gun, he writes "Ho ho ho! Now I've got a machine gun" on the dead guy and sends him up the elevator. Like, it is a Christmas movie. I don't care what people say. I don't care that it came out in the middle of the summer when it originally came out. It's a Christmas movie. And number one, probably one of the most quotable movies ever. Probably the movie that, I watch multiple times every Christmas, and that's National Lampoon's Christmas Vacation with Chevy Chase. If you don't like this movie, there's something wrong with you. I don't care how old you are. This is a great movie. I quote it over and over and over again. I quote it in the middle of the summer sometimes. So it's just one of those movies that there's not a bad scene in that entire movie. From beginning to end, that movie is, to me, you talk about perfect movies, it's right up there. It's one of the most perfect movies, but it's a Christmas movie. That's my top five. Christmas Story, Elf, Love Actually, Die Hard, National Lampoon's Christmas Vacation. I have a feeling that we're pretty close.
We are pretty close. I think we have a couple that are different. Most of it's just in a different order. I know we have two. I have one that's different, and we'll get to. Oh, you'll see. You'll see. So the one, my honorable mention, one that is just off my list is A Christmas Story. I like it. My fiance loves it. It's probably her favorite Christmas movie. And don't get me wrong, I love it a lot, but in comparison to some of these other movies, it's just fell outside of the top five. At number five is a movie that I liked a lot. I've always liked and have gone back to it quite a bit. Is The Nightmare Before Christmas. That's one that is just that isn't on your list, but I've always liked that movie, and watch it a lot.
You know why it's not on my list?
Why?
I've never seen it.
Oh, really?
Never seen it.
I really like it. I've seen it quite a few times.
Is it a Halloween movie?
It's both. Bit of both.
Okay.
But at number 4 is Elf as well. I know Mom hates it, but like you said, it's got a lot of quotes in it. It's a very funny movie. And you can just sit down and watch it and have a good laugh. I usually watch it at least one time, if not more, around the Christmas time.
Today, I was at a Christmas party with Stella, my grandbaby, your niece, and they had a bunch of wall art murals of Buddy, in his elf, Will Ferrell's elf costume, and I was holding her, and I just kept going over and saying, "He knows Santa."
Yeah. I mean, it's great. It's great. Number three, once again, I believe it's a Christmas movie. If you don't believe it's a Christmas movie, you need to check yourself, and that's Die Hard. I agree. It's controversial, but it shouldn't be, in my opinion. It's definitely a Christmas movie. Probably one of the only action Christmas movies, but it's definitely a Christmas movie, and I love it. So at number 3, I have Die Hard. At number 2, another movie you didn't have on your list, but is obviously one of my favorites. And as a kid growing up, I loved watching this movie, and that's Home Alone, the first one. I love Home Alone. I love the defending your house from the bad people, from the robbers. I think that's such a fun movie, such a funny movie. All of the different the fences he uses, burning the guy's ball cap with the torch, and uh, you know the paint can to
And
the face, and
and the
all that
reason
kind of
it's
stuff.
not on my list, I remember I was like 13 years old when that movie came out. I remember which theater I watched it in. It was in College Park, Maryland, when I lived in DC. And I think the reason that Home Alone wasn't on my list is I just watched it so many times,
Yeah,
and it got a little old. Like, I mean, obviously watching with you guys growing up, I wanted you guys to experience it, and know what it was. But it's
yeah,
just there was other movies that I just liked more. But
yeah. But I love Home Alone, and Ethan and I used to watch it all the time. So definitely top five. So I have that number two, and then number one, the point blank best Christmas movie ever created, in my opinion. Same as you, is Christmas Vacation. Um, I mean, you're right. It is very close, if not dead on, one of the few in its category as a perfect movie. Um, Constantly, I agree. I use Christmas Vacation quotes in June. You know, so it
oh yeah,
is. It's so good, and so many lines and so many moments from that movie are just
yeah, it is.
there are just some moments from that movie that are top five in all top five in all of quotes. So it is very, very good, and
Oh yeah,
I
like
watch that
every
movie
time
multiple times a year.
every time I'm
Love
like
it.
going down the stairs and I hit the banister there, and I always think to myself, fix the newel post,
Yeah,
and just stuff like that, like uh, bend over and I'll show you, like
yeah, yeah,
at the tree, and it's just your mom and I even quote it sometimes where it's I'll say like I don't know, Margot, just
yeah,
stuff like that. So
yeah,
to me, it's just it's so good, it's so funny, and it doesn't get old.
yeah.
Just because it makes me laugh every time. Now I'll tell you another movie you've probably never seen, and I do consider it a Christmas movie. And I watched it last year, and I almost made an honorable mention for me. Is Trading Places. Eddie Murphy and Dan Aykroyd. This was Eddie Murphy, one of Eddie Murphy's, not his first major like movie role. It was right there, like top two or three. But Trading Places with is so funny, and I quote that movie too. And most people don't even get it. Like I'll say a quote, and they're just like, "What?" Because I mean,
Yeah,
it is an old movie. It came out in the early '80s, but I tell you what, if you want to sit down and laugh, and especially like laugh and the way you used to laugh with the way comedies used to be, watch Trading Places. The premise is these two rich guys, Dan Aykroyd, like they work on Wall Street, and they actually commodity traders mostly, but they Dan Aykroyd works for them, and Eddie Murphy's like almost like a bum, and they bet $1 that they could make Dan Aykroyd poor and like ready to kill himself, and Eddie Murphy uh, successful. And so they trading places. They traded
yeah.
places, and it's hilarious. So that's one that you should check out. And if you haven't seen it out there, check out Trading Places. You won't be disappointed. So, all right. So that's the podcast for this week. So big matchups coming. I mean, I'm looking at the schedule the next couple of weeks. Obviously, Green Bay, Detroit, big time game. Atlanta at Minnesota. Atlanta trying to get their season back on track. Seattle, Arizona, huge game in the NFC West for you. Buffalo at the Rams. Um, Sneaky little thing. I feel like Chicago's going to beat 49ers this week.
I can see it.
You know what always happens, like that bounce back after a coach gets fired, team comes together. You know, I feel like it's not out of the realm that 49ers are favored by 4.5, but I feel like I might put some money on Chicago to
Yeah,
win that game. Um, Sunday night, Chargers at Chiefs. I mean, that's a huge game.
yeah,
And then Then we kind of got a stinker on Monday night, Cincinnati at Dallas. So at least we get to see Joe Burrow. But it's at 4-8. They got to win out to have a winning season, and that's even at 9-8, they're not getting in the playoffs. So I mean, Denver would just have to shit the bed for that to happen, and I don't see that happening. So, where are they at? Yeah, they're 4-8. I mean, you got Baltimore at 8-5. So anyway, thank you guys for watching. Like I said before, if you like this, if you like what we're bringing you, please give it a like. Please subscribe. Send it to a couple friends that you think might like it. The more you share, the more you like, and comment. If you comment on our videos, it helps the algorithm, it helps our channel grow. We're trying to grow, trying to do it organically. We're not paying bots to subscribe to our stuff. So, we appreciate you checking us out. Try to bring you some good content. My name's Chris.
My name is Matthew.
And we'll catch you next week.